What's up, everybody? How's my peoples doing today on this fine Wednesday? What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? I'm tired, somewhat tanned and sunburned, more so than usual. Um, but what's happening, y'all? How's everybody doing? Glad to be here. I see lots of people chatting it up already, which is very cool. Thank you to everybody that's shown up early to talk and do all the conversation and such. Jack78, you are very welcome. And sorry it took so long for it to get there to you guys, but you guys are awesome customers, and I appreciate all the stuff you order. So thank you very much. But what I want to do is tell y'all who I am. That is me, Gooniac33.me. I am the afterburner guy slash RC enthusiast slash goofball that flies planes past sunset. But if you are interested in any sort of afterburners or anything, and I'm doing lots of stuff with prop planes now too, regular LED kits, LED lights, Gooniac stacks, etc. Check out the website. You can see it there on the screen. You can also see it in the description. And you can also see how to become a member in the description and how to support me via PayPal or Super Chats and all that other stuff too if you'd like to. Not required, but it is very much appreciated. So thanks to all of you that support me. And I am going to now do the usual, which is shout outs because I see that there are lots of people talking really early. So I'm going to get back to who it was that was chatting and shout everybody out. So Mr. Jack78, as I said early, he is a member and he is a very big supporter of the channel. Thank you very much for being here, Jack78. Big Chris, thanks you for being here. He's a member also. Jeff in Lower Alabama, what is up with you? Mr. Pete Lane, what's happening, my fellow RC Bay Area Flyer here. Victor RC Jets, what is up with you? How are you doing? RC Jets, who is a member as well. Thank you guys. If you want to learn how to become a member, check out the description below. Mr. Charlie, I'm not gonna try to say your name. I'm just gonna say Charlie. What's up, Charlie? Thank you for being here again. Glad you could make it. I know it's late over there, but you came out to be here, and that's much appreciated. He is a member also. Mr. Mike Bird, all the way across the pond. What is up with you? You are here too. Charlie Z, that's what I'll call you. Charlie Z. Mr. John Thomas, thank you for coming by. I see you're here. We were chatting on Facebook earlier, and I think we've chatted on Facebook quite a few times, but thank you very much for being here. We will talk about some of that stuff a little bit later. Slapnuts, what is up with you? How you doing, Spencer? He is another one of my big supporters, so big shout out to Slapnuts, aka Spencer. He has been a huge supporter of my Afterburner and pretty much everything to do with Gooniac since the beginning. So Spencer, you are very much appreciated. Do not ever think that you're not. Who else? He's a member also, guys. So let's see. I said Mike Bird already. He's a member too, which is cool. Thank you. John Thomas, I will give you a wrench just because I see that you are here. So who else? Andy Cho, what's up with you, Andy? I still have to look for that servo. I haven't looked for the servo yet, but I will. Snow River, what is up with you? You are a member also. Andy's a member too. I didn't know that. Thanks, Andy. Tim Justins, what is up with you? How are you doing? Thank you for being here. Lionel Randall, what's up? Your order's going out soon. Who else? Everybody here. Michael Reitza, what's up, Mr. Reitza? How are you doing? Michael Bear, how you doing? Glad to see you here. Hangar 51, Kenny, what's up, Kenny? And Mr. Killer Planes, he's here too. What's up, Mr. Killer Planes? Thanks for being here. So yeah, we're going to be going over some stuff today, guys. I'm not going to go crazy long, but I do have a crashed plane. I'll go more into detail on that later. I have stuff I want to talk to you about. Battery connectors. I'm not going to actually do anything, but I'm going to show you how and why I choose the ones that I do, and why I use the ones that I do. So we'll do that. Then I have my Grippen that I finally was able to get flown over the weekend. It flew great, but it took a lot of fiddling, and I'll get through that when I get there. And then also I have some events coming up. One of them got canceled, but I have an event for this Saturday coming up, which we'll talk about, and hopefully I'll be able to get lots of video from there and put together something cool for you guys to see from that. So now that we have done this shout out, sorry for the screen changes, but I'm changing screens and it's going to be light and dark. Out of there. So let's do the usual and get to questions. If y'all got questions, now is the time. I see that there's lots of chatting going on, which is great, and I'm going to try to keep up with it all. So sorry if I'm lingering behind, but I will try to go up and see it, see everything that's being said. M5. Wait, are we talking about cars or is this planes? What is it? Mike Bird, what are you talking about? Are you talking about planes or cars? Oh, Mr. Paul Bauer, I didn't see you. What's up, Paul? So anybody got questions? Now is the time for questions. Now is the time. Ooh, BMW M5. Nice. So my son has an infatuation with the M cars. So he likes the M340i, the M2, the M4, the M3. Um, so um, I don't like BMWs because I don't like working on them. They're take proprietary tools and stuff. I ain't about that. So they're great driving cars. They're awesome cars. But but yeah. Anyway, M5s are cool. Very cool. Enjoy. Um, so anybody got anything they want to ask? Because I'll spend a little time on that, and then we will get right into the technical stuff, so I can talk to you all about, share some of the stuff that I know. So we got one for the weekend. Killer Planes. Yes, my son is 23. He got his first car in July, and he was lucky enough to be able to buy his dream car, which was a Dodge Charger RT. He wanted to get the Scat Pack, and thankfully none of those worked because I don't like those for a first-time driver, but he got a car that was really nice. And it's worked out pretty good. We've had some issues with it, but he figured out how to get this thing. He got new tires put on today, so we should no longer have any more issues with tires. But yes, I do have a kid old enough to drive, 23 and 21. Just two. And my youngest is taller than all of us. It's 6'6". So yeah. So let's see. Anybody got anything going on? What is up, Micah? How you doing? Mr. Roy, what's up with you? How you doing? Um, um, yeah, we're getting wind today too. I'm looking out the window right now. It was pretty breezy, but we're getting weather change. It was super warm on Monday, and then Tuesday came along and we had fog and it was cooler. It cooled off a little bit, but it hasn't been raining. It's the most important thing. It hasn't been raining. See, but that's spoken like a person who doesn't give a damn about cars. Doesn't matter what I can afford. If I like cars, it doesn't matter if I can afford it or not. I want to work on it. So if I get a car that's 80 to 100 grand, I want to be able to work on it myself. And if I had bought an Acura NSX, which would be an expensive car, I could work on that myself, no problem. Or if I got anything along those lines, I'm a mechanic, so I like working on stuff myself. I just don't like proprietary tools. I hate that. Mercedes, BMW, blah blah blah. So yeah. Kind of like I don't know. It's just I'm a tinker. I like to tinker on stuff, especially when it comes to enhancements and that sort of thing. So I started fiddling with my car, adding things to it, and my son actually got me back into that. We don't talk about Teslas here because Teslas have no soul. They aren't like electric planes. Electric cars are boring as hell. I don't care if they're fast. They're only fast up to about 100. But nah. Teslas are soulless. No thanks. No thanks. Yes, Reckham. There are 3 cars in our house, but I've worked on every single one of them. Yeah. Reckham, it's the same with me. I will occasionally have people do stuff that I can't do. I used to even do tires myself. But then once the wheels got really nice, my tire machine hasn't been updated, so I don't use. It's just, yeah. Internet's gonna change here. What's it doing? What the heck's it doing? Why is it doing that? Anyway, So yeah, but I've done tires, brakes, all the basic maintenance I do myself. I don't like doing extra heavy work, so I make sure to do all the preventative work to keep from having any major issues down the road. The next thing I need to do in my car is going through all the um, brakes. I already did that, but I have to put the actual right rotors on the back of my car, uh, flush out all the fluid, put the new high temp fluid in, .4, and then might even change the calipers on the front to something from the same brand, but they're supposed to be an upgrade, so we'll see. But from what I've heard, just pads and fluid change is all I need. No, here's the thing. No, I'm not an Acura mechanic. I used to sell Acuras. I sold Acuras for 4 years, and then I had Acuras of my own that I worked on while I was selling them. Um, but I love the Honda. Loved Hondas for a long time till people started figuring out how to steal them. Walked up on a guy trying to steal my car after my old one had been stolen. So got rid of it and decided that I was going to get something different. And Mazdas came in. Mazdas don't require hardly any maintenance at all. So, Michael, quit being an old grumpy man. No, they're not all hard to tinker with. No, no, no. Certain cars are worse than others. Um, uh, Kenny, it's funny you should say that. I don't know how many hours of complaints we have of you online, complaining about different makes and how things cost. hmm Um, so, um, so yeah, the somebody said something about an LS7. So you're doing like a resto rod type thing. That's nice. Um, Something that I know my son would love would be to get one of the newer. Uh, I've seen a couple of people get 350Zs and they put either an LSA or just regular LS motors in the 350Z and turn it into a rocket ship. But because they sell all that stuff. But okay, so yeah, and Lionel Randall, I noticed that there have been a lot of people talking about ESC timing and what timing is best for performance. Noticing that there's breakup, let me know. Um, in my experience with the stuff that I use, the best setup for timing is going to be low. Um, it's the simplest. You can go to medium, you can go to high. Some motors are designed to run on high and medium, but and some are very specific about the degrees advance and all that stuff. But for the stuff that I use, especially like 4-pole in-runners, which a majority of what I use are 4-pole in-runners, they prefer to use low timing. Sure, you can go up to medium, but it's going to give you an amp draw and a heat increase. And I don't want an amp draw. And if it's going to give me 1,000 RPM more, so what if it's going to give me 15 amps over what it is that I was using before? I'd rather have the lower amp draw and get used to that. I know that there was a video, I think it was RC Plane Reviewer, where he cranked up his timing to high on his Avanti with the 9-blade in-runner, and it worked good. But the downside is the heat's going to go up and the amp draw is going to go up. Now, what works best with those, if you want to increase performance, from what I'm noticing, leave your timing low and go up a cell. That has helped a lot. Like with my FMS equipped planes, just going up one cell has made a huge difference. And I got some new batteries. So that's another thing too. I was going to talk about those Yowu packs that I got are absolute doo-doo. Absolute doo-doo. They got one cell. I have 4 packs, 2 4S and 2 3S to make 7S packs. And I labeled them 1 and 2. You know, so I put the pair together. Every single one of those packs, every single one of them has a dead cell in the center. So never recommend Yolus ever. They're crap. I thought they were going to be good. Total duty. They're puffing up like crazy. They're getting crazy hot. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Gone. But as far as timing goes, I always leave it on low, especially for in runners. Some of the outrunners will prefer to be medium, and the PWM matters too. So you've got to get that stuff. But my rule of thumb is low. If you can adjust all the other stuff, I have to do an actual video showing how you change timing and stuff on these and some of the other on the avian, some of the others. I have the actual box for programming, and then Nate was on one of those lives quite a while ago where he did forward programming and showed how to change all that stuff too. So great, glad to hear it, Michael. That's I try to do things as easy as possible, and if you can get really good results from stuff being easy, that's the best way. And that's why I use that method, because it's super easy and it doesn't matter. Tim Juice, you know, like Honda's having. Listen to the Monodino VTEC. Listen to that VTEC. I used to have Hondas back in the days. I had Civic hatchbacks with big motors in them. Two Civic hatchbacks with huge motors for what they were, and then a four-door Civic that was stripped. That Mike Bird would like. I made a guy in an M3 wreck trying to keep up with me. So, Pops 305, what's happening? Thank you for being here. I've got some gun stuff that I'd like to send to you if you get a chance. It's simple. It's nothing crazy, but they do work. I have a couple planes that I'm going to be trying them in here myself. See what else. JP fans, they're very specific about their timing and their PWM, so you got to listen to or read the instructions, and it tells you. I think it's 15 degrees advance, and then the PWM is something too. But check and see what they say in their manual, because they're very specific about it. Otherwise, you could burn it up, or burn up your ESC. So, and yes, as Tim Justin says, it's easiest through your radio. Just have to follow the forward programming stuff for the from the radio. It's not that hard. It's pretty easy. Victor, you're always busy, but I'm gonna pester you guys when I see you at the event, and be prepared. But thanks for at least stopping by to say howdy. So yeah, let's see what else is going on here. And the thing, you know, what's crazy about Teslas, guys? I see you guys talking about the fire extinguisher. This do not work. They do not work. If you get a thermal runaway, get as far away from that thing as you can. They have them set up in a way where there's individual cells, individual chambers for their cells to try to contain it. But I was talking to somebody about that. I think it was my sister. Once there's a thermal runaway with those series packs, all you can do is sit back and watch. Just let it burn out. It's the same thing with their lipos. If you get a thermal runaway with our lipos, there's nothing you can do. You just have to let it burn out. And it's exactly the same as it is with the Teslas. Now, you also got to keep in mind, Tesla's still a reasonably new company, but go back in time and look at all the Ford Explorers, all the Jeep Grand Cherokees, all the Ford Pintos, all the Ford Tempos, all those cars that would just spontaneously combust for no reason. So you cannot give Tesla a hard time for stuff catching on fire when everyone else has been burning down stuff for decades. And yes, it's like a diesel runaway. Similar. Although with the diesel, you can throw a rag in the turbo or something and shut that thing down. If you could get something in the intake that sucks down into the pistons or somewhere to shut off the air, it will shut it down. Yeah, and so, from what I've had, I think I've had one run away on me. It was a it was kind of funny. It was a wasn't a generator. Well, you could consider the generator. It was a welder, and it just went crazy. It's number one, they're crazy loud because they're just straight out the exhaust, and then it just started going crazy. Started running faster and faster and faster. It didn't even have a turbo, but the little the what do you call it? The injector pump, the little governor thing. Something happened, and it just pegged and went crazy, and just shoved some rags in the intake. Thankfully, all they did was just block off the air. It didn't get sucked in completely. But, shut it down. But some of those diesel runaways, like on dyno runs, oh my god, that's scary because then you can't stop them. Or in the tractor pulls, the vehicles tear themselves apart. Terrible, just horrible. But so Charlie's asking, what's the difference between the new motion 64 F22? I think they changed the fan and they changed the ESC, so now there's reverse on the ESC. There have been a couple different fan changes over the years. There was a 5-blade fan the first generation, and then they had an 11-blade fan, I think, and they moved to a 12-blade. Maybe it was a 12-blade, I don't know. But the new one's got their new ESC, so it has reverse. So I'm not much of a 64 millimeter plane person anymore. Although I do have one that I'm gonna be getting together here soon. The Lipus P15. Working on that. So that's gonna be a new one. Yeah, Michael Bear, that makes sense because the NiCad, and so I was asking somebody about NiCads because NiCads are old technology, but they're also very stable. So it makes sense as to why you'd change to them, because then you don't have to worry about thermal runaway as badly. I mean, it happens with all types of packs, but at least it's not as bad with the NiCads. But yeah. And there is Mr. Firefox. What's up, Mikey? If you guys saw that little video I posted, he got one of the videos of me landing the T7A this weekend and last weekend. So thanks for the video, Mikey. The only thing I remember about NiCads is that they have a memory, and as long as you keep them done a certain way, you'll be fine. Nickel metal hydrides are supposed to be better for that. They work kind of the same, but they have better so that's so Regan Roy, I guess he had a diesel runaway. That happens a lot in Europe because they use a lot of diesels in Europe. There's a whole bunch of those cars going up. They just destroy themselves. But yeah, it's bad. And you can't just turn them off because they're compression ignition. They're not coil ignition like a lot of these others. So as long as there's air and fuel getting in there, they're just going to keep running and running and running and running as fast as they want. And it's pretty damn scary. Yeah, you are. Okay. Anyway, so anybody got any other questions? Anything else going on? If not, we are going to get into the technical side of things. So I'll talk a little bit about the connectors first, and then we will go to I'll find my headphones. Talk about the connectors first, and then we'll go into the other stuff. So yeah, but guys, keep in mind I wanted to have them up. What's up, Holly 1717? How you doing, buddy? Thanks for being here. I wanted to have something together to show you guys with some of the new things I'm working on, but as usual, I don't have time. Um, but after this weekend, I'm going to have some stuff to show you. Hunter Yoko, nice to see you. What's happening? OMP stuff is actually pretty cool. Um, I like what they've been doing, um, especially some of their little, the planes that's just supposed to run on 3S are actually really good performers on 3S. But so yeah, cool. Good to see you here, Hunter. So what else? So I think that we're gonna transition here. I want to talk about connectors. I'll end up getting to where I'll be on the screen. I'll be able to show you stuff on the screen, but we're not there yet. But I'll just talk about them a little bit. As far as the connectors go, a lot of people have their own preference uh, as to what to use, depending upon the type of amperage you've got. Could either be EC3s um, or ECIC, same thing. XT60, XT30, XT90. They have all of those. From what I've noticed, and then the Deans or T plug as they call it. Depending on what your amp draw is, you go off of the batteries the battery connectors that you use. So when I was using regular, it doesn't matter the voltage; it's mainly the amperage. Um, but if you're doing anything under 60 amps, you can use Dean's plugs or XT60s with no issue. I prefer Dean's just because if you know how to solder them. Actually, I don't even use Dean's. I use the knockoffs, which are actually higher temp. They can go up to 80 to 100 amps with no issue. But if you be sure to choose connectors that work for the amp draw. A lot of people get amps confused with voltage. Yes, when you use higher voltage, you will get a bigger snap when you plug in, but current is current. It doesn't matter what the voltage is. If there's whatever the current is what's going to create the heat. So if you've got a 6S pack that's drawing 40 amps, it's not going to matter if you're using an XT60 or a Dean's plug. There will be a snap, but it's not going to affect anything. But if you have that same 6S, or actually, we're just 6S at 40 amps, you can use XT60 or Dean's, no issue. Now, if you have a 4S that's pulling 100 amps, you shouldn't be using a Dean's or an XT60 or an EC3. You should be using something heavier like an XT90 or an EC5 because that's a lot more amperage going through. I had a plane that was 4S. It was actually the freewing A10, and I had upgraded the motors, and it had two motors that were pulling about 50 amps each. So that's a total of 100. And I had a Dean's plug on there. And it was one of the higher temperature Deans, but that thing would actually get hot if I stayed full throttle too long. So it's the amperage more so than the voltage. So if you've got anything under 60 amps, XT60 works fine, Dean's works fine, the knockoff Dean's work fine. The EC3s work okay for that lower amperage. But as soon as you get anything beyond that, you stick up with the bigger stuff. And I'll give you some examples here in person where you can see, and I'll show you what it is that I use and why it is that I use it. Yep, got them all right here. XT60, I have XT90s and EC5s, and I'll show you the difference. And yeah, Michael writes it, again, it all depends on what it is that works for you. When it comes to connectors, you want it to be a hard connection. You don't want it to be so hard that you can't pull it apart, but you'd rather that connection be really tight because that means that there's no room for any sort of arcing or any sort of overload, temperature overload of any kind. So here I have an XT90. I think this is the female. But one of the things that I've noticed with the two is that basically they're the same thing. They use the same bullet, the same connector. But the difference between EC, this is the female. Okay, but there's no bullets inside. What I've noticed about EC5s is that there's actually more of a connection here than there is with the XT90. So when the XT90 connects, there's this much smaller, you probably can't see it, much smaller connection here between this than there is compared to this. There's quite a difference. You look at the two. So see there, the XT90, you're actually not getting as much contact with the XT90 as you are with the EC5. So that's why I use EC5s. And then I'll show you a little bit more in depth when I get over to the table over there. And as corny as that sounds, it's actually right. If you have any kind of a loose connection, if it seems like it's real easy to pull apart and real easy to put together, what's up, Jeff in LA? That's when you're going to start having problems. And if people say, oh, okay, well, when I plug in my EC5s, I always leave a little bit of room so that I can for sure pull them apart. That's what's causing the problems. That little bit of area, will actually cause things to overheat. So let me see. Let's see here what else is being said. Yes, if it ain't tight, it ain't right. That is for sure right. And Michael writes, so you're right about the IC5s and EC5s. I think they do a better job making them, but I'll show you some different things here. And yeah, you're right. Especially if there's limited space, some of the EC5s are hard to pull apart. I have one that I have to actually put both hands on to pull apart. IC5s are easier, especially because they have that little grip built in, so that does make it better. EC5 does hold more amps than an XT90, and it's because of what I was telling you. And in my own testing, I've had some stuff that pulled over 215 amps. And did it for a long extended period of time, and it didn't affect the the EC5 at all. And then I have another one where I'll have to show you when I get to the table over there, where I had a big problem because there was only a contact in one area instead of it being around the whole area, and it caused a hot spot, and I couldn't pull the connector part that was on my F104. I had an awesome flight, flew great, landed, went to pull everything apart, and it wouldn't pull apart because it had melted. Come to find out, there was these little prongs in there, and only one prong was touching, and it got hot in that one area because all that current was going through that one instead of being spread out throughout the whole connector. So yeah, see what else is going on here. But yeah, the main thing is that the connection needs to be tight. Yeah, that's funny too. JST connectors, anything over 12 amps, and you're playing with fire. Literally, I've seen some of the biggest fireballs I've seen have been from 3S 1300s or 3S 850s with JSTs. There's a guy that had been flying, and the plane is pulling like 30 to 40 amps with the JST connector. And he landed the plane and it was fine. But when he pulled it apart, it deformed the connector, and the power leads touched. And it was just like a thermal, as we were talking about, thermal runaway. It was a meltdown, and then everything just went crazy. And as he threw it, you could see this little shockwave of a little shockwave poof off the thing when it blew up. It was crazy. But yeah, make sure you get your connectors for the right amperage. Noons, what's happening? I haven't seen you on here in a while, but thank you very much for being here. Yes, dielectric grease is a good thing because that actually helps with the connection too. Helps keep corrosion away, helps with lubrication, and also helps with the actual electrical connection. So yeah, that's a good thing, and it repels water. But if you get it on the outside, then it gets really hard to pull stuff apart. So just be careful with that. Make sure it's all internal instead of. And then so let me get my stuff set up, and then I'll do a little bit more visual explanations as to why it is that I use what I use. And we get to that. Let me check a couple more things here in the chat. Anthony, what's up? Doesn't matter if you're late, as long as you're here and showing up, and even just saying howdy is enough. I appreciate you showing up. So who else? The Lionel Randall, that's a good question. And I have 2 planes that actually do this on. I think one of them's here tonight. It is. And I'll explain how and why, or how and why I do things, and whether you should or shouldn't do it once I get to it. The JAS39 and my T7A have XT90 connectors, but I use my EC5 batteries on them. But you have to be very careful, and you have to do certain things to make sure that it works. And I will show you that here in a second. Oof, yeah, that's bad. And I have a friend who that happened to. The dog liked cardboard and ended up biting. I wonder if he's going to show up. Like biting on cardboard, and didn't realize there was a battery in there. Could have been a big poof. A big poof. And if it's in the house, it ain't a good thing. So, good questions and good comments, guys. So yeah, that is something I'll talk about here in a minute, and I'll explain why it is that I do it. So let me transition to the other camera. You have to give me a couple seconds to get that set up. I've got it all here, but it's going to take me a little bit to transition. So bear with me, and those of you that enjoy the porno music, you should really enjoy it now. But I'll be right back. well, Bill. Let's see if I can get the rest of this stuff set up, but I want to make sure I'm audible. Take a look at the chat. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Just let me know if you guys can hear. I need something like thumbs up, or at least somebody just saying you can hear me. But yeah, so I'm setting up right now. So let me know if you can hear. I think you can. Yeah, I gotta keep my music down, sorry. But it's down. I couldn't even hear it on these headphones. I wonder why. So let's get to the, once I get it all set up, I've got my Grippen on the table right now. Music or noise. So right now I've got the Grippen on the table and I'm turning on the cam right now, and you can see it. So that's the Grippen, and then in the background you can see over here I've got my F-35. So since we're talking about connectors right now, I'm going to bring up the something somebody was talking about, the XT90s working with EC. And yes, they do. XT90s and EC5s do work. It's just because there's an open area in here. Now you have to be careful, because the whole point in having an XT90, let me get the other connector so you can see. The whole reason for having connectors like this is for polarization, to make it so that you can't plug them in backwards. Now, if you're using an XT90 and an EC5, you can plug them in backwards. There's no bullets in this one. I'm just going to show you. So see, with an EC5 connection, that will be polarized. But if you're not paying attention, you can actually do that. So the most important thing to do if you're using an EC5 for an XT90, you've got to make sure to line up red with red and black with black. Otherwise, you're going to fry something, and it's not good. So, sorry for the jittery, but I got to turn this thing down. So yeah, can be done, but it's actually much better to use the proper connector. But see how much harder these are, and that's good that it's hard. It's supposed to be. Now the reason why it's too hard for it to go on an XT90 is because an EC5, the connection will be looser. So what I will normally do, so you see how these are, what do they call them? They're set in a way where you can actually adjust the tension. So I'll usually get something in there and adjust the tension to where it's actually not too hard, but where you can tell that the prongs are all making contact with the barrel of the EC5 or the XT90. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about a little more in depth with some of the other connectors. So let me pull. So last week I showed you guys some of the stuff from that I got from HRB when I ordered those batteries. So this is the series connector that I got from HRB to use for my 7S and 8S packs. And the reason why I like these over the others is because, so sorry, I should be going that way, like that. This is the main connection, and this is the two you connect to the battery. So if you look in here, you see the way that these are made. This is a different style of connector. I call them, I don't know what you call them. But this style actually works a lot better, and I can show you the difference between the two. So these are some others that I ordered as well, but I mainly ordered them for the female, for batteries, because I don't do many. This is gonna sound funny, but I don't do many male connections because most of the ESCs come with that stuff anyway. But so this is the oops. These are the connectors that come in this plane here. But if you notice, these are blades that can be adjusted or moved. Sorry for my goofy thumbnail. It's mostly grown back now. But so if you're going to use this style, you can use this style and they will work okay. But what most people fail to do is, and I think I can actually show you how this works with it being out of the plug itself. So yeah, I can show you. So this is the male side of the EC5 and this is the female side. So when you plug in, you want there to be a tight connection. And a lot of times when people get these things, it's not a very tight connection. That's a good one. So this is actually a decent plug. You want it to be where there's tension, because if there's no tension, you're going to get, instead of it being all of those pushing evenly against this barrel here, you're going to get maybe one or two prongs, and you have to have all of that metal in order to transmit all those amps without creating too much heat. This metal helps dissipate the heat, and if it's one or two of these, that's way too much to go through one. That's what's going to cause a hot spot, and that's what's going to cause these two to melt together. So that's what happens, and that's what's happened to me a couple times. Is you'll get a loose, sorry, I'm dropping shit all over, a loose connection between these two, and a loose connection between these two inside the EC5 itself, and then you'll get a hot spot. Next thing you know, these are melted together in a way where you can't pull them apart. Or the worst case scenario is they melt so far until these two battery connections actually short and then just destroy everything. And then you start dealing with thermal runaway. So I prefer to use this style of male plug because there's no guessing as to whether or not it's going to make a good connection. It has no choice but to make a good connection because of the way that they're made, and I don't have a way to show it in there. But there's lots of little, they're almost like fingers, but there's a way to make it have a very positive connection. So see, that's hard to put on there, and that's the way you want it to be. You want it to be a very tight connection so that there's no room for there to be any hot spots of any kind. See, if it's hard to get off, that's perfect. That's the way you want it. So granted, this is never going to happen, but I'm only doing this for demonstration purposes. But see how tight that is? It's exactly how you want it to be. The only downside is it's a little harder to get apart, but I'd rather have it be hard to get apart knowing that there's a very positive connection in there instead of it being loose and easy to get apart, and then next thing you know, it's melted. And worst case scenario, you have a major meltdown and a crash. Now that's one part of it. The next part is the way that they're soldered. And I like what HRB did with these. These are actually really well done. Normally, I will only use adapters that I have made myself, and especially not those adapters. I'm going to cut one open for you guys to see again. Especially not those adapters that are just like real butted together and then you just see heat shrink over it. But see, these guys, they actually soldered them in a way where the solder wicked up into the wire. You can see where you can't move the wire. And there's a good connection in here as well. So you don't have to worry about there being any cold solders. You see how when I do that, there's no, the whole thing moves. It shows there's um, solder that's gone all the way up into the wire. That's really good. There's a little bit of extra flux there. But these are really well done. And you want them to be silicone wire. These are 12 gauge, which is fine. 10 gauge would be better, just to help with a little more heat dissipation. But 12 or 10 actually work pretty good, depending on the amperage you're going to be using. This will work fine for what it is that I'm going to use. I don't have any crazy high amps anymore for the stuff that I'm using. But you want there to be wire, because that wire will actually help with heat dissipation, and then also with it's easier to maneuver. So I wanted to show you guys another one of these. Remember when I bought the Eurofighter? It came with one of these, but it was a series adapter, and it was soldered like that. You don't really think anything of it. You just know that it works the way you want. Let me show you why you should not use these for anything more than just charging. I'm going to cut this open so you can see, because I had no idea how bad these were, and I never use these for anything more than just charging and low amperage. But we're going to cut this open so you can see what they actually do, and it's going to shock you. It's pretty bad. When I first saw it, I was like, what the heck? You've got to be kidding me. So yeah, okay, so let's get in here. Look at this. This is just a solder connection. It's not even a real legit connection. It's just solder. There's no wire in there. And not only that, there's very little solder in there. So granted, this is just an EC5 or EC5 to a Deans, and this is even a cheapy Deans. So this one wouldn't even get anywhere near 50 to 60 amps just because of the cheapy plastic that they're using. But yeah, so this is where you don't use those things. Look at how easy it is to pull that apart. You see that? If I could just do that by hand with it out without it even being worn, number one, that's a cold solder. That's a very cold solder right there. You see how easy I just pulled it apart? If there's any heat that goes through that, it's going to be even worse. So don't use this style adapter. You want to see that there's at least some wire in there, and that there is at least some surface area being used. Look at that thing in there. That's way smaller than it's even supposed to be. You're supposed to have a significantly more metal in there to do things the way that it should be done. And the soldering is very important with that stuff. So let me show you what I made, because I use a smart discharger, and this is what I actually made for mine. Use a little bit of wire, and then I had to use the heat shrink too, but I used the good bullets. This will actually take a good amount of amps before it starts warming up. But this is what I used for my smart discharger. This plugs into the discharger, this plugs into the batteries, and then we discharge away. But you have to really pay attention to what you're doing with these adapters. I recommend that you don't even use an adapter that you haven't tested or actually made yourself, because just look at this. I mean, I can't get over how just totally crappy that is. Not only that, it's a really bad solder, And then look in there. That's horrible. And people are going to bet their plane on this stuff just because they don't feel like actually pulling out a soldering iron to do some good soldering. So no, don't do that. Do not do that. So anyway, so since we have this thing out, I wanted to let you guys know what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. It flew good. I took this thing out to the field 6 times before I got it to actually fly. Um, the main thing is I got the setup backwards in my head, so I didn't realize that the elevator goes one way. So elevator is that for canards and then up in the back. But then when it comes to ailerons, the aileron going up and the elevon going up in the back means that this goes down like that. So I didn't know that. So I kept making, thinking that I was doing the setup wrong and that things were not going the way they're supposed to. But that's part of the reason why it took so long. But then on top of that, once I got things right, I noticed that it was incredibly tail heavy. So I had to add basically almost 2¼ ounces. Sorry for the bumping of the camera. 2¼ ounces up here in the nose, if you can see in there. And because as I was taxiing out, the thing started doing the wheelie. So yeah, that's not going to work. So that was another trip where I had to go back home. And then when I made it out there this weekend, I had the weights with me, and I was able to get it going. Another issue was here. This magnet was backwards. So every time I'd put it on the nose here, it would slowly work its way out and just fall off. I'm like, what the heck's going on with the nose? And then it's sticking the nose up in the air because it's tail heavy. So I had to pull that thing off, as you can see the foam here from the glue. Pull this thing off, turn it around, and then glue it back in place. And then I put a little washer in there too to make sure that it made the proper amount of contact, and it worked just fine. But so I had to add that. Their recommended throws were off, as always, way too much. Since I have everything on separate channels, I have these on separate channels. I was able to cut the throw way down on those. So they only move a certain amount. And then, yeah, so the thing actually worked pretty good. But the first flight was a little tippy, a little bouncy, just because of the throws being off. But I don't have a gyro on the plane. It just has a 10-channel lemon with the satellite, and then the burners in there too. But it worked pretty good. There's not very much room in here. First flight was with the 30C4000. Second flight was with the 40C4000. Didn't see much of a difference in performance, but it worked pretty good. The plane looks really good. The burner looks excellent on this plane. Sorry for all the bumping. I plan on flying it this weekend at the event that we're going to. It's a jet event here, and it's going to be in the Central Valley here in California. So I'll get some more footage. I have videos of the plane having done its flight, but it flew good. It looks really good. I think it flies a little bit, for me, it's a little bit more efficient and flies better than the 80mm version. It's easier to transport. But yeah, it was a pretty big headache getting this thing working. It is a little draggy because of all the extra hard points that it's got. I'm thinking of trying to, well, I can't really even pull those out because they're molded into the wing. So the thing looks really scale, which I like. And it landed excellent. I was able to land really well with it. I have to get those videos up for you guys to see though. But yeah, it was a fun plane. And I look forward to getting more flying with it and more footage with this thing down the line. So yeah, it's been pretty good, and for the price, it's really good. It was under like what 300. It was well under $400, under $350. So it's a bargain if you're, I made all these mistakes and had to figure all these things out. So if you guys get this plane and need to know what works, you can just hit me up on my website or message me or leave a comment, and I can help you out with that. But definitely, it's a good looking plane. They did good on the paint. It has ordnance too. I don't know if I'd fly it with the ordnance because it was already pretty draggy as it is. But once it got going, it worked pretty good. Um, so definitely worth it. And I'll get more burner footage with this thing because the burner looks really good on this plane. So I'll get some more of that a little later on. But let me get that out of the way, and then I will put up the carnage from the crash and explain what happened with my F-35. It was a combination of being too low torque and a flat spin. So let me go put this thing out of the way, and I will get the F-35 up there so you can see the carnage. I could probably repair this thing and make it work, but I don't know if I even want to, just because of it already having been through a little bit of sorry, you can see my cat's food over there. But yeah, it's let's get it up here. Really wasn't all that bad considering what actually happened, but and I think it probably could be repaired, but I've already had one nose over with this thing when I had an LVC cut. So yeah, this could actually be done pretty easily. I just don't feel like messing with it. So there's that. I think there's a piece from in between here that goes in. Yeah, he's there. Or wait, no. This goes like that. And then this piece goes somewhere. I think maybe up towards the front or the rear. I don't know. Up here in the front. Goes up there. So yeah. So this thing could probably be fixed, and I'll probably just hand off the airframe to somebody and let them fiddle with it. But so basically what happened was the landing gear has been hanging up on the right side on this plane, and it makes the plane roll to one side if the gear hangs down. So as I was flying, I kept flipping the gear, trying to get it to come down and then go back in without getting hung up on anything. So I have an 80mm fan in this plane, so it has a lot more punch than what the stock plane does. So I've been able to go up into a vertical and then punch it again and be able to, go up and then come back down without the plane stalling. Well, I didn't realize how low I was. It's totally my fault. It's not the plane. Totally my fault. The plane was too low, and you'll see from the video when I post it. I went up, pointed the nose up, and flipped the gear switch. Went to flip the gear switch again. Went to hit the throttle, missed the throttle, and the plane stalled and went into this weird inverted snap thing. And I was only about maybe 150 feet from off the ground. So it got into this really weird oscillation and went into an inverted spin, or inverted flat spin, and smack right into the ground. So, but if you can see from here, this is from another incident where I had an LVC cut because I went too low and hadn't set the ESC right. Hadn't gone in and changed the defaults. So the plane's already got issues. I glued the wings in place, which made it really strong. But yeah, I'm gonna remove, if I don't remove all the parts, I'm just gonna find something to do with the airframe. But yeah, the plane is super strong. Now see, I could pick it up from out here and it's still good. So I like what I was able to do with this plane with the 80mm fan, and I'm probably gonna get another airframe and start over again because it works so well. Check my the chat and see what's going on. I hope you guys don't mind me rambling, and hopefully that stuff made sense about the EC5s. So yeah, and Charlie, the issue that I'm having right now with this plane is that they don't have any of the parts in stock. I'll get a new airframe and start over. I have no problem getting an ARF Plus and just starting over that way. But the issue is I glued the wings because I knew that was going to make it stiff, and it made it really stiff when I did. Um, but on top of that, they don't have the parts, so they don't have the fuse by itself. So, well, somebody that decides that they want to, fiddle with all this, I'll take the fan out and I'll give it to somebody to let them fiddle with it. But yeah, this plane was a rocket ship. It was a major air show piece too, because I was able to do so much with it with that 80 millimeter in there. The fan in there, just in case you guys don't know, is the X-Fly housing with an FMS 2100 kV motor and rotor. So that actually ended up being a really good combo because it has the new X-Fly housing, which is really good for efficiency, and worked really good. Tons and tons of power, especially for a plane this size, but it worked really well. So I'll have to do it over again. I have no problem doing it over again, just because it was such a good combo and the plane flew so good. I even on that crash, I even destroyed the receiver. The receiver's just totally gone. Ripped the antenna off. Yeah, so there's the antenna just stuck in here. It's not even connected. So, but that Laminar X did really good, stabilizing the plane. It just couldn't help it recover from this. Being as low as it was, it couldn't recover from it. If it was a little higher, it would have been fine. I could have turned the gain up and it would have just caught it right away. But yeah, so that's done. It's okay because I've got other planes that I wanted to work on, so be able to do that. And time to do something else. So anyway, that's it for that. So let me put this stuff away. I will get back to the other camera in just a second. So hang tight, guys. All right, guys. So I'm back. Hopefully that wasn't too boring and too long and drawn out, but did want to talk about that stuff a little bit. Um, one other thing to talk about as far as the EC5s go is to make sure that the soldering is done properly. Make sure that there's no cold solders, because if there's cold solders, you're going to have issues with heat. When you solder them correctly, you don't have any problems. With cold solders, it increases resistance and just makes stuff way worse. I'll have to do a show where I actually solder some stuff up so you can see, how I do it, and make sure, to make sure that things are right. With anytime you solder, you want to make sure that everything's really shiny in the area that you've soldered. And let's see if I can't pull that apart. Instead of there being dull. But yeah, you want there to be, the solders are super, super important. So the cold solder, I showed you, were you able to see those connectors that I showed you over at the other spot, Lionel? Because that was a cold solder there. So the solder that I use, I prefer to use the, the best solder to use is 6040. But that's going to have lead in it, but lead with flux. So that's what the best. However, the best, what I prefer to use is the lead free. When you use lead free, you do have to use a slightly higher temperature, but it works really well. What do I use? What's the name of the company? MG Chemicals. Lead free solder is what I use. And make sure you have a good soldering iron that will spread the heat out evenly instead of it just being like hot in one spot. But you want things that heat up quickly without heating up everything. So you want to heat up that one particular section instead of it heating up the whole wire. You just want it to be in that one area. The Fred Baron, what's up? Thank you for being here, even though you had a call. But thanks for showing up. So Charlie, I use MG Chemicals lead-free solder. I prefer lead-free, and I use the stuff that has flux cores so that you don't have to worry about adding flux to it another way. The best way to do any kind of soldering is to have like a solder paste, which will help you the solder wick its way in. But if you have the right kind of flux, it'll do it right. It'll do it well too. And I could always do a show showing how I solder. I may not be soldering, the absolute textbook way, but all the stuff that I do works really well. I don't ever have issues with solders coming apart. Make sure to do the right kind. Reckham Roy, it's when you're doing any kind of soldering, especially for anything above 12 gauge wire, you want to have a really good soldering iron that's at least 60 watts and a somewhat wide tip. You don't want a really pointy tip, but you want a somewhat wide tip so that you can get the heat where it needs to be quickly without heating up everything. You just want to heat that one point. So yes, the paste is good to use. It's messy, but it is good to use. Oh, I think I have some solder right here. This is not the solder that I use, but it's Rosencore. This is lead-free 97.3. This is good, but you have to have a high temp soldering iron to make this work. So yeah, I do a lot of soldering, and if you have ever been on the if you've ever been on any of the Zoom calls that I've been on when I've been working on burners and talking to people, you'll see the smoke from burners and all that stuff from the solder, from me soldering stuff. So I will do a demo one of these days so you can see. Because I'll just set up my stuff here so you guys can see me do it with the tripod and such. There's a different way to do it for thicker wires and for thinner wires, but I have a really big 80 watt, soldering iron that I use for batteries. It's got a real fat tip. EQ, what's up? I didn't see you, but thanks for being here, EQ. I know you're on the East Coast, so it's late over there. But and I appreciate all you guys hanging with me this whole time. I still see there's 18 people, and I've been going for almost an hour and a half. So we're gonna wrap it up here. But hopefully this was able to help you guys somewhat. I need to do some actual soldering for you guys to see how I do it, to make more sense of it. But we'll get it to. I'll do something that works. You guys can actually see it done practically. But anyway, I'm gonna get going. Thanks for those of you that have been here the whole time. Much appreciated. Keep your eyes open for the new guns that I've got coming out. I'll have something set up for the FMS P51 and the FMS P47 here pretty soon. Hopefully sometime next week I'll be able to do it. I have something I've been working on for a while now for the D18. That'll be going up too. And I'll have somebody that's going to actually demo it for me and make sure that it works. But that is it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for being here. And that is all. Have a good night.